Good morning, everybody. Charts. So start out with the futures here. Good morning. Good morning. Actually, I guess not too bad considering what's going on. Um, and we always reinforce basic things that we do, like looking to the left. You had to know I was going to say it, but reinforcement of our concepts is what creates consistency. And one of those is just applying basic technicals. I mean, we had this nasty drop from started last week. We're going to look at oil. You can see it ripping higher, come down quite a bit. But, the futures sell off in a big way. And you look over here in this prior pivot lows, and that just sets up, hey, I think that buyers will show up there. And at that point, you go to a lower time frame and you look at it and you look for evidence of that. And so I wasn't, I was aware of what was going on, but I wasn't going to start opening up the platforms and looking for whatever and setups and so on. But there's a nice move off of the low there. Um, and so there's been a lot of damage done, obviously, and you're going to have this gap down, and we'll see how it plays out today. But it's come down quite a long way in a short amount of time, and that's good. It's good because it creates a void, and from our perspective of creating opportunities, it's exactly what it does. And so one of the things that we always look for when there's a sell-off is where are the internals? And so they're pretty close. I think they're going to get closer or more aligned, assuming today we have some more downside movement. And so this is not the one I use on a day-to-day basis, but it's close enough for government work, which is to say pretty sloppy to be government work, but it's finally come down from a zero level and moving toward an extreme. And we'll get more of that today. And the sentiment gauges, one of them is already at an extreme. And today, and as things settle, we got economic reports coming, of course. Um, I think things will line up so that we're going to have a buy setup. Now, of course, disclaimer: who the hell knows what bombs might go off? And you've heard what the president said: unconditional surrender and all of that. And you know what? Of course, that raises speculation where everybody's afraid of. And what does that mean? You know, people can be suicidal. It ain't gonna stop. And they drop the ultimate bomb on them. And let's just pray that that's not gonna happen. Um, so look, hopefully this will be over relatively quick, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. Technically, traders are just looking to the left and saying, you know what, this is down a bunch on a short-term basis. It's an opportunity. Let's buy it there. Let's see what happens and see where things have bounced up from. All right, let's see where the spiders are, and then we'll look at other markets. Um, yeah. And so where do they go down to? And almost the area of that unfilled gap. And right down there, where they at, gapping below all of that major support, which obviously is bearish, and there's room for it to drop. So even though they're bouncing up a little bit here, that doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. We'll see how it plays out in the first half hour. And you look at a chart like this, and of course you look and you say, you know what, that 200 MA and that pivot low down there, they are calling, and that's where that area ultimately would be where, if it was to go down there, say sometime this week, I believe, and just based on historical patterns, if it was to do it relatively quickly, it would be a significant buying opportunity. And that's something we'll be looking to see how this plays out during the course of this week. So obvious reference points. And, I started to write about a chart of the week that I didn't get to finish it. But anyway, one of the points in it is that, what all of the technical analysis ways that we can look at things, and this word that's used by marketers being proprietary, there's no magic indicators, which anybody that's here knows that. And so this whole idea of proprietary is really based on a personal way of interpreting price data. And here at Master Trader, it's like, well, let's just look at the price data and see what it says. And when we see overlapping bars like this, which have been going on for several months, it displays confusion. Now that confusion is over in a decisive way, breaking down under this major support. And that creates a belief that it's likely to go down here. Well, that belief can change based on the upcoming bars that'll be produced, bar by bar analysis. And so, this whole proprietary thing, there's so much out there, is my point, that just creates a situation that makes it extremely difficult to succeed in this business, because there's so much shit out there telling you to look at different things using words like proprietary. And, we all want to believe that it's some, magic motion out there. And I mentioned in the room a little while ago, look at the gap up in Hims, right? And so they're making an alliance for this weight loss thing. And now, we used to joke years ago, wouldn't it be something if there was a magic pill that you could lose weight, you wouldn't have to exercise? And here it is, right? You inject yourself, now they have a pill, and people are getting skinny. Anyway, see what happens with all of that in the future. All right. So gap down, the short as to what's going on here, gap down. We look to see where they're gapping down to. And, when I looked in the gap up and I saw, wow, look at this Hims gapping up. And it's like, why am I looking at the gap up? Well, what's showing relative strength? I keep an eye on the VIX. You can see where that's spiked up to. We'll see where it is today. I imagine, well, here it is. It went up to 35 and it's backed off here. Look, it's making a little double bottom to suggest that's going to go up, market's going to go down. And so 35, I mentioned in the weekend letter, keep an eye on 40. If you go further back there, 40 was where there was some prior turns. But you can see right here, there was a little drop right from that 35 level. So, whether it's the VIX or the S&Ps, you look over to the left and see where there's prior reference points. All right, SPX, I got to double check these numbers because they are like crazy as far as, but markets, that move like this makes for crazy, of course. This when I looked at them, I like that. Seems inconceivable. And they adjusted 64.50. Yeah, I feel like they came up a little bit, but look where it is. And this is a good thing, because what does that communicate to us? It communicates that whoever it is that's buying these options are fearful of a crash. And you can say, well, that's valid. And you know what? When you're buying insurance, you are fearful that something disaster is going to happen. So you buy the insurance to hedge your risk. And so they're so convinced that there's this risk out there that they're willing to pay an abnormal amount of money for insurance. So they're buying put options down there at 64.50. Now, is it going to go down there today? Highly unlikely. That's we always look at that. And so they're opening down here. I got to go back and look at SPY. But anyway, unlikely to get up there. Heavily unlikely to go down there today. So it would have to go through 6,700, which when we looked at, last I looked, it wasn't below that, I don't think. Would have to go through this unfilled gap. Would have to go through these pivot lows down here, 6,600. And so I think as far as today goes, and while this is the extreme, you say, well, where can I get premium and not have to go, like, to do this to make it make sense? You probably have to like 20 wide. So where would I go to potentially do 5 wide? And so anything above 6,500 should still be a no-brainer. And you got the 200 MA right there. So lots of lines of defense, so to speak, that would stop from going down here. And so at this point, it's violating, I think it's violating the support. Look at the futures. Let's look at SPY. Yeah, breaking down through this major support level. This gap here, set an alert. And you may not be looking at this, set an alert at the 200 MA, give or take. And patterns like this, where you've got these, rounding tops, violating major support and a void. The idea is somewhere down here, we know buyers are going to show up. It's like over here, we knew buyers would show up because of this price action there. And wash, repeat. All right, let's look at other markets. Of course, we have to look at crude oil. Well, of course, everybody wants a crystal ball, Robert. And I wanted a crystal ball when I first started out. I was like, you know what? I don't know about you guys, but me, knowing nothing about the markets, I figured somebody knew some secret. And you can say, well, that was kind of naive, Greg. Well, you know what? There was no internet when I started out, so there was the kind of information that's available today, but the same BS was still out there and tons of different opinions about things. And you figure somebody must know something, right? So how do you find that secret? All right, so crude oil hit almost 120. It's backed off quite a bit, and it's too far, too fast. It's created a void, and this is, of course, the world will be watching to see what happens here, and of course, what happens, as the news is fed out to us as to what's going on. Qs, of course, gapping down, but holding major support. They continue to show relative strength. And we look at that and say, not too bad. Look where the 200 MA is. Oh, it's relatively close by. And it's been going sideways for so long that the 200 MA has caught up. So here was this fantastic rally that up, 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 and now sideways for several months. And so if we get a close below this pivot down here, that's going to be kind of ominous looking, because when you got a consolidation that's lasted as many months as this, and it breaks down on a closing basis below there, well, of course, it suggests it's going to at least go down to the next level where there's a whole bunch of pivots below. But for the moment, it's holding quite well. And maybe it's just another trading range. So we have to continue to observe on a continuous basis until the bars begin to form in a way that makes sense to us based on the patterns we're looking at. And right now, I see this and say, you know what? As far as the NASDAQ goes, some things are holding up great comparatively. All right. IWM breaking down to the next set of pivot lows, creating an opportunity to watch for some stabilization down here. So it's already moved from here to here. It's on the pivots. We'll see if it can hold here and set up something where we get a little counter trend rally today. And let's look. Oh, the diamonds. We'll look at the futures real quick. See where that's at. Well, that held up pretty darn well, but it's got nothing to the left. You can see where my cursor is. Well, buyers came in there on Friday, so it's retesting that low. Again, the 200 MA is down below. And let's just take a peek here. So 200 MA on the futures is there. And moving averages are, I'll just use the word secondary reference points, because when we look like at anything based on a technical reference point, what are the majority looking at? And so moving averages are subjective. And So you want to look at the underlying. That's why we look at the diamonds and Qs, look at the underlying where that's at. Because the futures market is, futures traders are looking at that and they react to it. But you see the bottom tail there is down near those prior pivot lows. You see the Qs broke down under there, coming back up again. Pretty significant rally off of the lows there. And Bitcoin, and I'll look at gold. Not too bad. That's holding up really nicely. I mean, it's still within the base. It's whippy, but understandable based on what's going on in the world right now. You can see down near prior lows, so holding up there looks okay. And maybe this is a little bit of a positive sign that gold isn't ripping to the upside. It's just hanging there, doing nothing. Silver, we're going to be liking this if it closes this way with a bottoming tail bar. We got to wait for that bar to complete itself. Interest rates have moved up quite a bit this week. There's a little bit of an inflation concern, of course, with oil going up like it has. So they're gapped up and jiggling around there for now. You can see the bond futures are down at a point where if you trade bonds, you want to be a buyer down here. And so maybe interest rates start to come down, oil starts to come down, markets rally. We're going to see how this all unfolds in the coming hours and days. And check this. I mentioned this in the weekend letter. See, this is what we monitor this, what's going to happen with short-term interest rates. And so here's they start moving up, and then we know that the Fed is going to be on hold. And then, of course, they come out and they say, we're on hold. And now this is rolling over. And you're going to see there's going to be more talk of, hey, what's going on here? Now the Fed's going to have to cut. They were on hold. Now they're going to consider cutting. And this is what this chart communicates to us, that the idea, bond market's idea, is that the Fed is going to start considering lowering interest rates. But it changes on an ongoing basis. But right now, rounding top, it's starting to break lower. It's up here a little bit. Still lots of uncertainty. And we'll just see how it plays out. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. As we wrote in the letter, the Fed's in a dilemma of trying to fight inflation and the jobs market. I heard Arian, I forget which bank over in Europe, but he said they only have a single mandate. They don't have the jobs mandate. So he said they're going to be raising rates over there because of inflation, and they don't care about the jobs effects. But our Fed has to juggle them. But with this oil going up, we know oil is going to push through other products, right? Fertilizers, jets, higher transports. That's what got whacked here on volume. Transport breaking down because of the oil. But we'll see. Alarms, I don't have many. Actually, the XX alarm I had an alarm at 38. It went off pre-market. So that's way off the pre-market highs. I just looked. This one does not have zero DTE. Google. We had this as a call spread in the letter, but with the gap down, we're going to need a bounce to get filled. A firm, I just had an alarm. I had up and down alarms on the firm here. So nice move up the low. FIMO. See, that's a potent reversal. We use a something bar, potent reversal. They come in different flavors. And look, the weekly is a gap, range expansion, engulfing on support, major support. So I love the weekly on that. And we just got to monitor here for an entry on the daily. Ideally, it chops around another day or two. And then we come back a continuation pattern, which it has this void to 60 or high 50s, whatever. And alarm. My up alarm went off, but I don't see any prints. We'll come back to it. Calc alarm. I can't tell. There's no prints, so we're just gonna wait for the open. Couple of oil stocks here, and things are extended. So I think I found a couple here that aren't as extended and are still bullish. So P10 broke out and went sideways, so it's rested. So that's worth keeping an eye on. There was an article about them in Barron's about the continued pain in the private equity firms. Al was the one that kind of started it back over here, and then I think it was BX. Was it BX or BLK? Let's see. So I don't know, one of these. I think this one Friday they not halted, but reduced redemption requests, and that's what Al did also. But that is one ugly breakdown bar. KKR has it's just a nasty trend. I read in today's journal that these storage companies, memory, they've been on a tear. And look, I've been talking about these things, been climbos for a while, and I said they will turn. This, something doesn't go from $40 to 300. It's not going to do that forever. It's just a fact. And so look, last week was a gap breakdown, topping pattern, chopping around. And the journal this morning mentioned that we're going to have a memory shortage. So you would think that they should be gapping up on that news. And they're not. And the pattern suggests lower prices. So I think these are topped out for a while. Let's keep an eye on those for call spread opportunities. Depending on how high we can get. 400s. MU is in that group. MU, I also read they were going to be added to the S&P 100. But I think they're getting hit because of the market, because otherwise being added to a major index is very bullish. But that's another topping pattern. Look, daily, weekly, Climo, monthly. This kind of a small little retest and failure at a Climo, lower high on that bounce, and this is a void. So all of this, they're all toppy. I just saw these little guys going by the ticker. Look at talk. That's a gap from a bull rectangle. 1, 2, 3 on the weekly. P10, we already talked about. Couple earnings here, not many. HRTG gapping to this high, and there's no void, so I don't no interest in that. I can't tell where it's, well, did have some prints up here. Another bottoming pattern. This is actually a nice new low reversal down here. With a climb on the weekly. Let's set an alarm. How about 586? F-cell, garbage. Triple D. If it can get above Thursday's high, it would be a bottoming pattern. Beta, nothing. Zim, nothing, maybe call spread. Live Nation had some news. I don't think it was earnings, but some other news. Oh, they settled a lawsuit in the government. 162.80. I don't know. Hymns, Greg mentioned. I mean, if this were gapping, I love when they gap just over the resistance level. So if this were gapping at $18, I'd say buy a 5-minute high. But gap's too big. Light, that's a big old gap. Look, that started from a small Bear Island reversal, but it might at best to give you a day trade based on this gap up, but no, it's fine better. MOH was added, I think, to the S&P 100 also. But this looks like a short on the daily, weekly, on our last week's low. Looks like a short. And call spread. Let's see, Sam, these were yours. Meg, buy setup, deep retracement, but power 1, 2, 3 weekly, 1, 2, 3 monthly, even though month's not over. So that I like, Meg. Sam, who's the sexiest Meg that you know? What's her last name? Perfect. Me too. And this one I like. Sam's list breakout. I like the gap reversal. Ideally, we get a 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4. Mama, another buy setup. This bottoming pattern. I think that was Alex. A beautiful bottoming pattern. So if it opens flat, well, my minder's showing us down 80, but I don't see any prints. But I'll set an alarm then 5140. So if it recovers, closes strong, like that. Sure, got pre-market. Yeah, my pre-market's still there. Good morning. It's kind of an M top breakdown, 30-minute low. You got a void. VSAT, call spread. And call spread, gapping down here. It's gapping down to 42. So I don't know if we're going to get any premium. Look at ribbon. It's still potential bottoming pattern. I set an alarm at 1545. Igniting gap on volume. It's pulled in, and it's buyers are there, but this closing breakout, I think we did buy it, but could be a second time around. Those were all the earnings, and I'm done with all that. And yeah, USO I have this call spread watch. I'm sure they're going to be very spreading, but that's a gap and crap pattern. We're playing with fire though, because this thing can gap, like this war can gap up, as we've seen, 10, 20 bucks. But it's a call spread candidate, that's for darn sure. I'll wait 30 minutes though. All right, alarms. Cream. Cream alarm. All right, so I actually gave this as a put spread with an earlier entry, which is Friday's high, but a directional, I gave a Thursday's high as a 1, 2, 3. Ribbon alarm, I just mentioned, went off. Look at ribbon. Hey, Greg, are you monitoring which 0DTE puts you like the best? I hope this thing doesn't keep going. So as of right now,
Just buy it. It's probably oil going up. People gonna go buy electric cars.
Oh, okay, I was asking you about foot
I
spread,
just got the alert. You
but if
probably
you
just heard it. It was on Riven.
really nice, sure. So stop. I'll give it last week's low. But yeah, I was talking about put spreads too.
Spiders are at 666. Oh my God. A little bit above and change.
Sam, FIS alarm, I think the two, or balance, whatever. Let me check ribbon puts too. So put some ribbon. Papa Mike. Um, Alex, that was your list. Came down hard, so only expect a partial bounce. But look at the 15. That would be a nice 30-minute high trade or 10-minute high, whatever. You figure it out. ADP alarm. We're long that from last week. Looks good. I don't know why my alarm went. Fill my ribbon puts. Doctor alarm. We're long that. That's holding relative strength. We get 16. Yeah, so yeah, we're in trail mode on that. There's obviously nothing to do, Stephen, for a new trade. All right, cues. We'll check. Let me see how low we can go. $5.85 would be $10 lower. $0.45. Not bad.
It's okay to sell that, Steve. I mean, there's no, you can see the little whip there on my charts, but yeah, it's risen enough and I'm at the 50 MA and you can see the top of today's bar is close to that unfilled gap. So I don't think it has a lot more left in it to the upside.
Mm-hmm.
Or sell half, or so hold on to a little if you choose to.
Yeah, we in the room have a third left.
Like we all want to milk as much as we can out of a trade, but keep it in perspective. It was a swing trade, a bottoming pattern. It's moved up a lot in a short amount of time. It's great. That kind of pattern to move like that is fantastic. So nothing wrong with taking the money.
Mm-hmm.
Ulos.